India is expected to increase its imports of Russian crude oil in September.
We're putting a 50% tariff on you if you buy oil from Russia. That was a big blow.
US President Donald Trump has targeted India's trade with Russia. India, for its part, has said that it will prioritize what's best for the nation first.
For decades, the global economy ran on an operating system written in the West. The rules of trade, finance, and especially energy all flowed through channels controlled by a handful of powerful nations. But what happens when two giants decide that rulebook is obsolete? What happens when a simple deal for oil becomes a bold declaration of independence? This is the story of how a quiet agreement between Russia and India is sending shockwaves across the globe. It's redrawing the world's energy map and posing a direct challenge to the unipolar world order we've known for a generation. Make no mistake, this isn't just about oil, it's about a rebellion. When the West moved to economically cripple Russia in 2022, it expected the world to fall in line. The choice was simple: you're with us or you're against us. But India, the world's largest democracy and a rising economic powerhouse, chose a third option: itself. While Washington has watched with alarm, a new axis is being forged, not of military might, but of discounted, crude, and strategic defiance. A single trade deal has become the new front line in the great game for global influence. Section 1. The world as it was, the unipolar moment. To get how radical this shift is, let's rewind. After the Cold War, the world entered what many called the unipolar moment. The United States stood alone as the undisputed global superpower. This wasn't just military might, it was economic dominance. The US dollar was, and largely still is, the world's go-to currency. Nearly all global trade, especially oil, is priced in dollars, the petrodollar system. This financial architecture gave the West incredible leverage. The ultimate weapon in this era wasn't an aircraft carrier, it was sanctions. By controlling the plumbing of global finance, the US and its allies could cut entire nations off from the world economy. For decades, this power went mostly uncontested. When this weapon was turned on a giant like Russia, everyone expected a swift economic collapse. But they didn't count on India. Section 2. The catalyst. A war and a wall of sanctions. The 2022 conflict in Ukraine triggered the most aggressive sanctions regime in modern history. The West's strategy was crystal clear: isolate Russia and cripple its ability to wage war by strangling its most vital lifeline: energy exports. European nations began the painful process of weaning themselves off Russian oil and gas. The G7 imposed a price cap, a complex tool meant to keep Russian oil flowing to avoid a global price surge, but limit the profits funneled to Moscow. The message was blunt: buying Russian oil was financing the war. The pressure on countries was immense. The stage was set for a major test of Western economic power. Experts watched, expecting Russia's exports to crater. But then something unexpected happened. The oil didn't stop flowing. It just changed direction. Section 3. India's great game, the strategic pivot. While Western nations were shunning Russian barrels, Indian refiners saw the opportunity of a lifetime. Russia, desperate for customers, was offering its Ural crude at huge discounts. For a nation like India, which imports nearly 90% of its oil and has 1.4 billion people, the economic logic was a no-brainer. Cheaper crude meant lower inflation and a massive competitive advantage. The numbers tell the story. Before 2022, Russia made up less than 1% of India's oil imports. But that figure skyrocketed, and by early 2024, Russia had become India's #1 supplier, peaking at over 40% of its crude purchases. By late 2025, those numbers have come down from their peak, with Russia's share settling at over a third, but the message was sent. There have been fluctuations, with state-owned refiners sometimes reducing purchases due to US pressure and narrowing discounts, while private refiners often filled the gap. Indian officials have been unapologetic. They've repeatedly stated that their primary duty is to secure affordable energy for their citizens, and they'll buy it from wherever it makes sense for the national interest. This wasn't just a trade-off, it was a masterclass in what India calls strategic autonomy, a foreign policy that refuses to be locked into any single camp, balancing ties with Russia, the US, and Europe to put its own needs first. Section 4, the backlash and the unintended consequences. The West, and particularly the United States, was not pleased. As India's purchases of Russian oil continued through 2024 and 2025, the pressure mounted. The situation escalated dramatically in August 2025 when the Trump administration imposed sweeping tariffs on Indian goods, explicitly tying the penalty to India's continued energy and arms trade with Russia. An initial 25% tariff was soon doubled to a staggering 50% on many Indian exports. But this move put the US in a very tricky position. Punishing India, a crucial partner in the Indo-Pacific, risks pushing it further away. More than that, the economic fallout could be severe. Analysts have warned that forcing India to completely halt its Russian imports would yank hundreds of thousands of barrels per day from the market, creating a massive supply shock. This could cause global oil prices to spike, hurting Western consumers just as much as anyone else. This is the new leverage India holds. Its massive market gives it the power to absorb huge quantities of oil, acting as a global price stabilizer. Ironically, by continuing to buy Russian crude, India has helped prevent the very supply crisis and triple-digit oil prices the West was trying to avoid. Section 5, the new energy map. And this isn't just an India-Russia story, it's part of a much bigger realignment. Alongside India, both China and Turkey have also become major buyers of Russian energy. These three nations now account for the vast majority of Russia's seaborne fossil fuel revenues, allowing Moscow to weather the storm of Western sanctions far better than anyone expected. Russia's pivot to Asia is no longer a talking point. It's a reality, built on oil tankers sailing to new, friendly ports. What we're witnessing is the old, unified energy market splintering apart. For decades, there was one market, one set of rules, and one dominant currency. Now, a parallel system is emerging, complete with new trade routes, new insurance providers, and new payment methods designed to bypass the US dollar. Bilateral trade between India and Russia hit a record $68.7 billion in the 2024 to 2025 fiscal year. And in a clear sign of a deepening partnership, President Vladimir Putin has already instructed his government to find ways to boost imports of Indian goods to help balance this trade. Section 6, the dawn of a multipolar world. So what's the real deal here? This oil agreement is a powerful demonstration that the unipolar moment is over. The world is no longer a chessboard with only one king. Regional powers like India are asserting their own interests with newfound confidence, practicing a pragmatic foreign policy where economic needs trump historical alliances. The India-Russia deal has exposed the limits of sanctions in a world where major economies are willing and able to find a workaround. It highlights a fundamental shift. Economic power is spreading out, and geopolitical influence is following right behind it. For India, this isn't about taking sides in a new Cold War. It's about securing its own rise on the world stage and ensuring energy security for its people. But this is a high-stakes game. Is India's strategy a masterstroke of geopolitical balancing or a risky gamble that could alienate its Western partners? What do you think this all means for the future of global power? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown useful, give us a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the forces reshaping our world. The story of the Russia-India oil agreement is far from over. It is a defining chapter in the rise of a new, multipolar world. It's proven that national interest can be a far more powerful force than international pressure. The old global order has been challenged, and the board is set for a new era. The question is no longer if the world is changing, but who will write the rules for the next generation.